Lithuania, Lithuanian Responsible Business Association, Nordic Council of Ministers of Office in Lithuania, I am proud and happy to welcome you all to the 8th Nordic-Baltic Sustainable Business Summit 2021, which will focus on the topic of talents, sustainability, and what is most important in our today's life. On the background of the Sustainability Summit, it is an annual event focusing on corporate social responsibility and sustainability issues. For 8 years already, businesses, NGOs, academics, and political leaders from Nordic and Baltic countries have been gathering in Vilnius to discuss the challenges that companies face while moving their businesses towards corporate social responsibility, and how governments as well as other stakeholders can help companies to operate in a more sustainable way. During the last summit, we discussed how COVID pandemic is shaping the post-COVID world, what are key lessons learned, what are the opportunities for business in the moment of crisis and turbulence. We do see that COVID pandemic is still shaping the everyday life of ours, including governments, businesses, and each of us having the biggest effect on how we work, where we work from, what are the habits and routines of our work, and how they change. Despite all the negative aspects brought by COVID, we see more flexibility, more freedom to reach our clients, stakeholders, talents, but at the same time, we do see the challenges, us becoming more departed, remote, lacking sense of unity and understanding each other. Thus, the key questions to be explored during the summit are related to sustainability practice focused on exactly the attraction and empowerment of talents. What are the successful examples of sustainability practice helping to attract, maintain, and empower talents? Is sustainability a catalyst for successful talent management, or new talents are the catalyst for sustainability practice development in businesses? Blending sustainability and talent management functions, how Nordic-Baltic perspectives are different and exceptional. Office-driven versus freedom-driven approaches. What will we see dominating in the labor market tomorrow? During this summit, we will have 5 wonderful presentations, all focused on the topics of sustainability and talents. Moreover, I do hope to have all the speakers today gathered to the, in the summary discussion for the comments and conclusions, which would be practical and sustainable for the future. I would kindly note that we are all streamed on YouTube platforms as well as our partners 15 Minutes portal. So even if you cannot, unfortunately, have our questions received directly, I would kindly welcome all of you to put your questions in the comments of the appropriate platforms you are watching us from today. So without further ado, I would kindly welcome His Excellency Mr. Ole Terje Horpestad, the Norwegian Ambassador to Lithuania, for his opening speech and insights. Dear Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Labas rytas, dear members of the Nordic Chambers, business community, ladies and gentlemen, all participants of this conference. It's an honor for me to open the 8th Annual Nordic Sustainable Business Summit 2021. I'd like to thank the Nordic Council of Ministers Office in Lithuania and our partners from the Nordic Chambers for their outstanding work in organizing this summit that focuses on sustainable business and empowerment of talents. As we have experienced, the world is changing fast. Technology, socioeconomic trends, and crises like COVID-19 are changing the way we work. The demand for new skills like digitalization or robotization may pose serious challenges to people, business, and society. A sustainable business agenda has become a critical tool for staying competitive in a changing world. A key challenge to shaping a sustainable future of business is to make the right use of the skills of talented employees. Business is not only about technology, money, manufacturing processes, or the supply chain. All successful companies depend on human capital, skills, and human needs. Without people, every patent in the world would be worthless. People are the ultimate consumers of every product and service, even the most obscure manufacturing technology. It's people who make the decisions about what to purchase and when. Upgrading talent management practices and investing in the right people is an important challenge within the business community, which wants to stay competitive. Despite a generally higher level of education, a large number of employees are coming of age or finding themselves unmotivated, lacking the right skills to take up the jobs available today, and even more, the skills that will be needed in the future. According to a recent Deloitte report, only 14% of executives believe that the traditional organizational model with hierarchical job levels based on expertise in specific area makes their organization highly effective. This shows that companies that perform better than their competitors are busy building practices that enable them to address current needs while preparing for the future. Empowerment of talents also demonstrates that you care about the input of everyone on your team. When you empower your team, you motivate them to row together, and you increase the overall success of your mission. Empowering builds confidence in their capacity to execute your collective mission and goals, establishes essential trust in an organization. So in my view, leadership is essentially about the human dimension, about empowering talents, employees, about making the team work together for a common goal. Steve Jobs once said, "Great things in business are never done by one person, they're done by a team of people." Empowerment of talents is a prerequisite for sustainable, successful business. Therefore, I'm happy to now, after this remarks, give the floor to a successful gründer, Berta Linderud, who I hope will share her story and insights and maybe secrets on how to create a successful business. Thank you very much for the attention. I look forward to an interesting outcome of today's conference, and the best of luck for the deliberations and the discussions to follow during these next couple of hours. Thank you very much.
Your Excellence, thank you very much for such a kind intro. And I think that, I have nothing to add more. Dear Berta, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to almost be in Vilnius, and very excited to share, well, yes, my story with you and the reason why I'm been invited to this wonderful stage. So I hope to use my time here to hopefully inspire you and to see the value of curiosity, to release the human potential in your organizations. I'm going to use some of my time to share my story with you, the reason for my passion and work, and why I have been invited here. I'm also going to talk about why all of us need to ignite our curiosity and be brave enough to engage in conversations, to connect with each other as colleagues and as humans in the workplace to create a sustainable future together. And I truly believe that this future belongs to the curious, the ones who are not afraid to question it, to try it, explore it, poke at it, turn it inside out and upside down. And millennials, the also called Generation Z, the new talents, they ask questions and they poke and they challenge and they change everything. They do not ask if they can work for you. They ask, why should they work for you? What do you as an organization stand for? What are your values and how do they match with their values? Millennials are resilient and value-driven. They strongly believe business must have purpose beyond profit, and they will not accept status quo. And as a result, they redefine the future of work and continue to push for societal change in order to create a more equitable and sustainable world. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They do not work for a logo. They work for a cause, and they work for each other, for their team. According to PwC's recent global survey of 3,200 workers in more than 40 countries, strong cultures, as Ole also talked about, drive better business outcomes. Organizations with a view of culture as a distinction and a source of competitive advantage maintain a sense of community better, respond to customer needs better, innovate with a higher degree of success, and deliver better business results, right? So what is a company culture? You might be familiar with the expression that the culture is in these walls, right? Well, it's not. Where's the culture? It's in you, it's in the people. The culture in an organization is really not something we have, especially not in the walls of our offices. It's something we do. It's in everyone's behavior, communication, and interaction every day. And my personal journey into curiosity and communication and connections and company culture started 8 years ago. And it started, as a lot of things do, because of a man. And in all modesty, I have to tell you that I'm married to the most wonderful man sometimes. Well, I'm not married sometimes, but he is wonderful sometimes, right? However, the thing that really connected the two of us from the very beginning were the great conversations. We could just talk for hours and hours, and through our conversations, I came to understand that this had to be just about the wisest man on earth. And this is, of course, not the case now, many years later. However, he was just so interesting and interested because he asked questions, and then he even listened, and then he asked more questions. And frankly, so did I. And fast forward a few years, and we have 2 more children in addition to my 2 boys from a previous marriage. And I began to realize that once these kids were gone to bed, we were spending much of our alone time together, exhausted on the sofa, in front of the TV, and also preferably with our phones in our hands, and not anonymously, if you recognize this, right? And I really missed our conversations. I still had a lot that I wanted to talk about. I had a lot that I wanted to ask him, and even more so, I had a lot of questions that I wish that he would ask me from time to time. However, it was not only our conversations I was missing. I was also really scared of losing us. I had gone through a divorce several years previously, and I was terrified of once again finding myself in a situation where we would first lose communication, and then connection. Because I had learned the hard way that when we stop asking, we stop sharing, and then we stop caring. So I began to write down questions on small paper notes and collected them in an envelope. And that was questions about us as individuals, as a family, as a couple. And this envelope was quite full when I presented it to my husband one night. And over a bottle of wine, which of you, of course, need to get a Norwegian man to open up, we started to randomly pick questions. And that night was kind of magical for us, 9 years ago almost. It was like going back to those first years of dating. Remember those days when you're naturally or actually curious of each other? And we shared and we laughed and we even cried for hours, and we didn't pick that many questions because each question generated so much conversation. And I remember thinking that this must be fun, entertaining, and maybe even meaningful for all couples out there. And so back then began my journey to develop a tool to ignite curiosity, start conversations, and fuel connections. And in November 2013, I launched in Norway what is now known as Fuelbox, the box of great conversations for couples. However, since I had worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 11 years and the last 5 years with developing team leaders and people, I soon came to think that, well, it's not only in a couple's relationship we need to be curious of each other and talk with each other to be happy together and to make it together, that is to succeed together. So what began with a feeling of disconnection has become a tool for connection. Fuelbox has become a concept of a dozen different tailored fuel boxes in 9 different languages, and even a Fuelbox app, which you can find in thousands and thousands of homes and schools and private and public organizations and businesses, not only in Norway, but in several other countries. And me and my wonderful team of 9 colleagues, we work every day to help businesses implement Fuelbox as a tool to release the collective potential in their organization. And Fuelbox, whether we're talking about Fuelbox couples or team or Fuelbox leadership or Fuelbox family or even Fuelbox youth or the app, are all about cultivating curiosity, about coming together face to face, picking relevant questions to kickstart reflection and break conversation that develop and strengthen ourselves, our connections, and whole organization through sharing and learning and growth. So my personal needs were the reason for developing Fuelbox. However, it may not seem that I was alone in having these needs, because what curiosity, asking questions, and having these conversations comes down to is connection. I have learned that our connections is the most important thing all of us really have. They are crucial to how we feel, how content and happy we are, for our health, and for how we perform in our homes, in our schools, and especially also in the workplace. We all have the need to be seen, to be heard, to feel valued, and to have a sense of belonging. A lot of studies show this now, and I think all of us here also know this. And why has it become so important today and so relevant even in the workplace? I think that has everything to do with the world we live in. The fantastic technology that we are surrounded by today has made the concept of distance very different. The world has become smaller and more accessible in so many wonderful ways. However, the question remains, has this wonderful technology brought us closer to each other? Or has it perhaps brought us closer to everyone else, except those closest to us? Today, we work in front of these screens, we are entertained by them, and we spend hours being social through different devices. So these screens and these mobile devices that we are all more or less dependent on, they not only change what we do and how we do it, but they also change who we are, because we are getting used to being together without being together. We live in a world today where we hold these phones more than we hold each other, and we ask far more questions of Google than we ask of each other. The paradox is that we are more disconnected in a world that has never been more connected. We are connected, but we are alone. Look at my slide, even when we are together. And what does this mean for the workplace? With new hybrid solution and ambition to create agile leaders and agile teams, how do we attract and keep talents then? How do we build company cultures where talents not just want to come, but where they want to stay? There are many studies and surveys done lately that shows that the pandemic will and should change the way we work, and that it has changed all of ours, and especially the upcoming generation, the new talents, expectation to how they will work. Flexibility and autonomy being on the top of their list, together with purpose. This is not something we can ignore if we want to attract and keep talents. So how do we release the individual and the collective potential in our new hybrid organization? Because loneliness is still one of the world's greatest epidemics, and this COVID-19 pandemic has not changed this for the better for us. And loneliness, as you know, is really bad for us, for our health, for our performance, and especially in the workplace. And then loneliness is not about being alone. For example, in your home office, we can feel alone together with others. And that's probably the worst kind of loneliness, because loneliness is about disconnection. It's about not feeling seen and heard and valued, and that we belong. So that is why I believe that is an important, if not the most important, leadership responsibility to create space for conversations that would otherwise not take place. Conversations where we can get to know each other better in a way that creates connections, belonging, unity in a company. Conversation where we can share and explore our different perspectives and learn from each other. Conversation where we receive feedback and acknowledgement for what we do, but even more so for whom we are. And last but certainly not least, conversations where we can connect, engage, and explore our shared purpose and value. And I will just show you a small selection of how you could start the conversation in your team, in your company, with a few questions from Fuelbox team and our Fuelbox app. So this isn't a question to connect people, right? And questions to invite all of your colleagues to discuss important issues to create the business that you want. At a big business summit here in Norway a few weeks ago, two great sources of inspiration talked about what they think is crucial to succeed as organizations in the future. Irene Meyer, co-writer of No Rules Rule on the culture of Netflix, and Jitske Kramer, who is a social anthropologist. They said that we need less bullet point and spreadsheet meetings and more campfire conversation. Can you imagine campfire conversations in the office? But they stress that culture is about connections and bonds between people. And this means that we must set aside time for great conversation to establish these connections and ask the questions that are important to get the culture we want and need to succeed. Because there's always something more urgent than having a great conversation, both in our personal life and also in the workplace, right? And we talk all the time, don't we? But what are we actually talking about? Do we have the conversation that makes us feel seen and understood and heard and valued and that creates belonging? Do we ask the questions that are important to bring about the culture we want, as Meyer and Kramer said? And then how important are these conversations and these connections in the workplace really? To enjoy and be happy at work, obviously, but to perform and create results. What really characterizes the most efficient teams? The teams that performs the best in an organization over time, measured in financial outcome. That's really why we are here in this team, right? And that is also what Google wanted to find out. And maybe some of you know this, but they analyzed 180 teams and interviewed hundreds of employees over a period of 2 years in their study Aristoteles, because they wanted to know what characterizes the most efficient teams in our organization, the teams that performs the best over time, measured in financial outcome. And they had an idea. They had an idea that the teams that were put together by the most competent people that had complementary competencies had to be the dream team, right? And what they found was quite the opposite. Who is on a team matters less than how the team members interact with each other. They learned that there are 5 key dynamics that set successful teams apart from other teams, and by far, psychological safety was the most important one. In teams where the members feel safe to take risk, be vulnerable in front of each other, perform the best. And mind you, this performance was measured in financial outcome. So the question is, what is really psychological safety? Well, psychological safety is about giving candid feedback, being vulnerable, openly admitting mistakes, and learning from these mistakes together. So how can we create a culture and a team where people feel psychologically safe? Safe enough to be who they are, say what they mean, admit mistakes, or that they are uncertain on how to go about a task. A culture where all employees dare to challenge status quo and bring their ideas to the table. I believe that psychological safety starts with our connections with each other, with trust. So to create psychological safety, we need to create trusting relationships in our team. And then the question is, what is trust? There's many definitions of trust, and I with many like Charles Feldman. He says that trust is choosing what is important to you to become vulnerable to the actions or reactions of others. Engaging in a conversation and sharing something personal or sharing your thoughts on a specific topic with each other in a team is also trusting each other. Having a great conversation where we ask questions and share with each other is actually practicing trust. So creating space for conversations that would otherwise not appear is actually creating space for developing trust in a team or in an organization. And trust is fundamental in the new ways of working. What I have learned the last 8 years is that being curious, asking questions, and sharing our thoughts, perspectives, and stories with one another creates intimacy in a team, in a relationship, recognition, respect, understanding, trust, belonging, and yes, even love. And if there's something we need more of in our homes, in our workplaces, in our world, it is these words. And it is not something we can take for granted. It is something we have to take responsibility for. We as leaders need to create space for the conversations to happen, for the connections between colleagues to develop, and for the culture we want or need to be built. One of my personal role models is Sir Richard Branson. You all probably know him as the founder of Virgin Group, which controls more than 400 companies. He was awarded with the most admired boss back in 2015, I think. And one of his most famous quotes is, "Train people well enough so they can leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to." I believe that great conversations really eat strategy for breakfast. And I have, of course, been inspired by the more famous quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast, operational excellence for lunch, and everything else for dinner." This message has been linked to many different big leaders and authors in economy and leadership. Regardless of whom said it first, the message is that people are your most important asset. And your result depends first and foremost on your people and how they communicate and interact with each other. That is, on your company culture. You might have the greatest visions and plans and strategy documents, procedures, products and services, and intention to run your business in a sustainable way. But if you have not shaped the right culture, engaged all of your people, you will never reach the fullest potential of your company. And then there's change. Progress, growth, development is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. And we live in a world where change is the new stability. And we as organizations, we need to embrace change as an opportunity to learn, to grow and achieve together. And for me, sustainability is closely linked to diversity and inclusion. And diversity and inclusion is really not about color, gender, religion, age, sexual identity. It's about perspective. It's about being open to the idea that other people have different life experiences because of the way they grew up, their religion, their age, their color, their gender, and whatever it is, and that it is of great value to bring these different perspectives to the table. Different perspectives are crucial to release the individual and the collective potential in an organization. Inclusion at work is a company culture that actively invite, involve, and value people and their different perspectives. Once again, leadership is very much about creating space for these conversations and invite people to these conversations and value their perspective. What I've also learned the last years is that it can for sure feel both very vulnerable and take a lot of courage and trust to look someone in the eyes and ask them these kinds of open-ended and deeper questions and start these conversations, because you never know what kind of reaction you will get, right? And that's why we need to practice. We need to practice curiosity, communication as individuals and as a team, as a culture. And of course, me and my husband, we practice with our kids. And once at our cabin, we picked this question from Fuelbox family together with our kids. Who could play the leading actors in the movie about our life? And you might think, what could possibly go wrong with this question? Well, I'll tell you. My husband, he was really happy about the outcome of that question, because the kids thought that James Bond should play my husband Thomas. And you can, of course, see the resemblance. Me, on the other hand, I was not that happy with the kids' choice, because they thought my role should be played by no other than this thing, Sid from Ice Age. And mind you, when I was curious and explored their answer, they said it was not only because we look alike, it was also because we have the same personality. So you need to be brave enough to also embrace the answer that you will get. I will leave you in 30 seconds with a scientific proven tip, and which will not only make you great conversation partners with or without Fuelbox, but it will fuel all of your relationships and your connection. And this tip is only 3 words. And you can see Dr. Mark Holder's TED Talk for all the research and science behind this tip. But according to him and his science, there are 3 words all of us in this meeting should use more often. That will make us great conversation partners and fuel our connections. And these 3 words are: tell me more. These 3 words, they signal interest, that what you are saying to me means something to me. That means you mean something to me. And then something happened in the conversation and in the connection. So tell me more, and thank you so much for having me and listening to me. Thank you.
Berta, wow. What an inspirational presentation. Thank you very much there. I think that I had kind of, the first question was more of a philosophical one, right? Where's the direct link between the sustainability and fireside chats? But I think that you did open it up, right? That this is the backbone of the sustainability. If we are not curious, if we're not able to listen to people, I think that, you know, any thoughts about being sustainable will vanish in a second. Am I correct with that kind of outcome and output of the discussion?
I at least totally agree with you. And I also think that we need to understand we cannot only have a sustainable director in our company. We need to engage everyone, both to understand the possibilities in sustainability and their responsibility, but also to create engagement so that everyone is working together to create a sustainable business. So that is really my message.
But Berta, and I fully agree with you. And here comes the tricky question that I promised you with, right? In your presentation, you said yourself that it is hard for ourselves sometimes to talk to our loved ones, right? But imagine the CEO, right? We will have Paulus, for example, from Payco talking later on with us, and he manages hundreds. Sometimes it's even thousands, right? So when it's hard to talk to our loved ones, what would the CEO, the shareholder, have to do to put the fire on and start this conversation that these would actually become the part of our culture?
Well, thank you for asking me that. Well, I really think we always, when we want to start something new or change something or improve something, we need to start with the leaders, right? So when we work with company, we always start with the top management, and we start having these conversations in the management team, the top management team. And then the leaders bring these conversations down to their leaders, and they have the conversation, and then they bring it further down to their team and engage all team members in these conversations. So, but it has to start on the top. And I also think it's a great idea for all leaders to show vulnerability. Of course, a leader for 1,000 people can't go around having these conversations, but they can post a video and share something personal, some personal reflection, something personal about themselves, show some kind of vulnerability, show who they really are, to try and connect with their organization and to inspire others to do that further down. So I start with them. It always starts on the top, but I think it's a demand that comes from the bottom, really.
Perfect. Berta, once again, thank you very much. To the audience, I will kindly remind that Berta will be there with us in the summary discussions there. So should you have some philosophical or practical questions for Berta, please go ahead, shoot them in the comments there, and I will be more than happy to address them in the summary notes. So now, after the keynote, thank you, Berta, once again, we will have a very interesting scientific study presented by Mr. Jesper Christiansen from the National Research Center for the Working Environment in Denmark. And this is very, very scientific, right? The name of the presentation itself, the future of the Nordic psychosocial work environment, the implications for occupational health. Jesper, the floor is yours. Walk me through, right? So what are those implications?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talk about it, and I can say I'm already very excited by the first talk, and I can hear that I will expect that there will be really many takes on sustainability in the business, and this is my take on it. And as you said, it's a scientific study. It's part of a larger project called The Future of Work: Opportunities and Challenges for the Nordic Model, for the Nordic Models. And I will present some results from a sub-project of this large study. So briefly here, see if I can change. So yeah, here we see it. This is what I'm going to talk about. I will just talk a little bit about the purpose and aim of the study, and then I will give you some insights in the two research projects that were part of this study. It's what was a literature review, and also something we call a Delphi study. And I will dive a little bit more into the Delphi study than the literature review. And finally, I will end with some conclusions and reflections. Before I start, I want to thank my colleagues that were involved in this study, especially my colleagues in Norway in the National Institute of Occupational Health. They were the project leaders of this project, and maybe it should be Jan Olav that were making this presentation, but he could not be here today. So, but I have borrowed some of his slides and mixed it with some of my own. So that explains the mixture of different styles in these presentations. You have to bear over with me on that, and I hope it will not confuse you too much. Well, so here we go. As I said, this study, part of a larger project, this study has focused on occupational health and work environment in the Nordic countries. And in particular, it focused on this question: what will be the future challenges that we will have to take notice of in the future, and what will be the consequences for the psychosocial working environment in the Nordic countries. As I said in the beginning, we had a literature study where we investigated this question. So try to find out what are the scientific studies that have been studying these questions, what topics and themes have they addressed, and we looked at more than 6,000 studies in the screening process, and in the end we included 53 studies for a review. I will not go very much in the depth with this part of the project, because there's not so much time, but I will just give you this brief overview of the themes that were uncovered in this literature review. So you can see what is it from a scientific viewpoint, what are the topics and challenges that are to be expected and that is studied right now. Some of the themes, for example, are workplace tele pressure, availability demands, and work private life interference. And there's also this introduction of new technologies. So the future, we expect a lot of new technologies to develop and influence the work environment. Of course, that has caught the interest of researchers also. There's a specific question about information and communication technology and the demands from that. How do we use information and communication technology in the work? What are the changes and how can that influence the psychosocial work environment? There's a specific topic of techno-stress, which means that we, due to the new technology, we are always on. We have to respond to emails immediately, to SMS and text messages immediately. We have to check the our Facebook and messengers and all kind of things immediately. We cannot uncouple from that, and that can really stress us and create what we call techno-stress. That is also an issue in the workplace. Finally, there are two topics that were not so covered so much, but still interesting. This attitudes towards new technology, and also when you use technology to harass co-workers and others, writing bad comments and criticism in different social media, and etc., etc. So those were some of the themes that were uncovered and subjects for scientific research. I will not go more into this, but if you are interested in that, I have left links to the reports that we made of these studies in the end of the presentation, so you can find the reports there. Okay. Now I will move on to the Delphi study that I was more involved in than the literature study. I will just say, why is it called a Delphi study? Well, this study was about the future developments, and the Delphi name comes, of course, from the Oracle of Delphi, or Oracle in Delphi, which was a priestess in ancient Greek that was famous for predicting the future, or coming with predictions about the future. So, of course, we would like an oracle here also to predict the future of the work environment. We don't have any Greek priestesses in the study. Instead, we use experts in the field of occupational health, and ask them about their views on the future and what they expect of challenges and opportunities, both for the workers, for the employees, but also for the employees. So that's the way we collect data. We had experts that we were interviewing, asking questions about their opinion, and then we analyze it in an iterative process, arriving to some statements about the future. And this is a brief overview of this iteration process. First, we ask these open-ended questions about the future, and then we have a feedback process where we process the input, and the final round 3, we have some statements about the future, the challenges, opportunities that we ask these experts to rate. And in the final analysis, we analyze the consensus about these statements, and in this way we try to identify what will be the trends, what will be the topics in the future, what will be the challenges that businesses and work life and workers and employees should consider. So before I present you the results, maybe you would like to know a little bit about the background, about the experts. They were from different fields. They were from Norway and Denmark, so it's a collaborative study between Norway and Denmark. And these experts represented different fields within occupational health and safety and work environment. First and foremost, they were social partners, that is representing workers, employees organization, and also employer organization. So we have both sides, view from both sides there. And also we have consultants working in the field with occupational health. We have labor inspection authorities, researchers in the field, and different occupational health professionals. We didn't include companies per se by themselves. And why didn't we do that? That is because then we have to include very, very many different types of companies and fields in order to cover all kind of opinions, and that will simply be too much. So we try to restrict it in this way and focusing on social partners, for example. Still, this study generated a lot of inputs and statements, and we organized it in 7 groups that you can see here. There were statements, thoughts, impressions about technology, not surprising. Demography, that's also an issue. People are moving across borders. Borders are opening a lot. So how do we business deal with that in the future? Climate change, that is also environment, sustainability, clearly an issue here. Globalization, also not surprising. Needs for new skills and competences, also an important issue when we look into the future. And finally, social, political, and cultural changes that could happen in the society. And that includes, for example, this COVID-19 pandemic crisis. That is really a social change that really have rocked the world, including the work environment and the businesses. So that was a little about the background. Now let's look at some of the results. Sustainability was not a specific theme that was addressed in our study. I have to note here, say that this study was carried out before pandemic. So when we discuss these results, you have to bear that in mind. But nevertheless, sustainability was a topic that was addressed in some of the statements, and I've just shown you 2 of them here. And I will take this opportunity just to show you, explain to you how you should read these results. First, there is this statement. For example, the statement, a sustainable work environment will become more important as a strategic competitive factor. And we asked the respondents, the experts, do you agree with this statement? And they could answer from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And that is indicated in the bar here, how many agreed and how many strongly agreed, and the 22% neither agreed nor disagreed. There were none of the participants that disagreed or strongly disagreed with this statement. So quite a high consensus that this could be something that would characterize the future. And then we have this value here. You can see on the right, the consensus score that can range from -1 to +1. So it should be in between there. And if it's +1, close to +1, as you see here, then it's a high consensus. And you can see that because there are many greens and many high agreement here. So the consensus score indicates pretty high, moderate consensus about agreeing with this statement. And we defined a score higher than 0.7 as a high agreement, a strong agreement. Finally,
yes, but being cautious of time, I think that if we could move to the results, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, yeah. We also asked about the negative and positive consequences, and you can see that was also very varied. So this was the statements about sustainability. And sustainability was not a topic by itself, but the work environment was. And my message here is that sustainable business also means sustainable work environment. And you can see that one of these statements here was about the sustainable work environment. This is a new topic. There's no general definition. What does it mean by sustainable work environment? But if you look at sustainability in terms of environment, it means that you don't destroy the work environment. So we talk about a sustainable work environment. It means that you don't use or destroy human resources or human capital. And in old times, work did that. We are not there more, but still people can get sick, burned out, worn down, stressed, and things like that. So it's very important that modern businesses are not like that. They should have a sustainable work environment that support human resources, their human capital, as was mentioned in one of the previous presentation. It should contribute to employees' well-being, physical and mental well-being, and it should also generate values for the employees, meaning in life, purpose, and things like that, and of course also income, money. So that's why it's really important to address work environment in the future, also to have a sustainable work in the future. And the research covered all these all these things, different challenges. I cannot go into all of them, but one of the things that I want to focus on is home office or working from home, or what we call remote work, because there was an issue before the pandemic, but it's becoming even more important now, and a lot of business are moving towards more remote work, to more working from home and home offices and things like that. So there's a demand from that, and also employers, employees, workers some have good experiences with that and also requesting this. So there is a push and a pull towards this trend. So what do the results say about this? Well, there's a lot of things covered by this, that includes remote work. Potentially, working from home can promote autonomy and flexibility. It's flexible to work from home. You can decide your own working time to some extent. You can have breaks when you want to some extent and things like that. So there, of course, very much more flexibility included in that. And that is a positive resource in the work environment. But it also demands something of you. It requires self-leadership. And sometimes it also requires flexibility. You're always on, maybe you are always on work. You don't have the ability to set limits for yourself. So you're working more because you don't know what is expected from you because of this lack of leadership, maybe. Also, an issue that was uncovered is who's responsible for the working environment when you're working home. Who's checking on you? Who can see then when you're not well, if you're stressed, if you're on the limit of burnout, and that can be huge consequences for you. You can be sick and cannot longer work. And also, as was mentioned in the previous presentation, social contact is a very basic need. We need good contacts, and it's also important for business and company to work because we need to collaborate, share knowledge, and have support from our colleagues. So let's just briefly dive into some of these results here. That showed that self-leadership is something that is of increasing will be required to increasing extent, and there's a pretty high consensus about that among the experts. So almost all of the experts agreed that this aspect of work will be important in the future. And that raises some questions. Who is good? Who can manage this self-leadership? And that is something that is not really clear at this moment, because working at home is something new. And also availability demands will increase. So you should be available at different times at the day, and maybe also different days of the week. When are you off, and when is the leisure time, and when are you supposed to work? So this new way of working, as exemplified by remote work, poses some new challenges that has to be solved. And there's also a statement saying that it will become more difficult for workers to know what is required and expected of them. I would expect that there would be a high consensus about that, especially if connected with remote work and the requirement to self-leadership. But as you can see, the consensus score was not that high. There was a low to moderate agreement. There was 22% of the experts that actually disagreed with that, and just a little bit more 34% of the experts that that agreed on that. So there are mixed reactions to that. Maybe if we carried this out after the pandemic with more remote work, then maybe the experts will lean more to agree with that. But we don't know that, of course. So that was the flexibility and the requirement to self-leadership. Social contact. Not surprisingly, there was also a relatively high agreement that there will be more solitary work, also as kind of remote work. There will, of course, we will work more in solitude. What are the consequences? Yeah, it can, of course, one of the consequences is this commitment in the workplace, that you don't have this sense of belonging to the workplace and have the social relations with your co-workers, which makes it more difficult to know what is going on, how are you in the other groups, what is the state of the work, what is going on. So there's a lot of things that are lost when the social contact is deteriorating because of remote work. And this last statement is saying more of this. It will also hamper social relations at the workplace, but it will also, yeah, that's more or less the same statement. In other words, it's also an issue about the consequences on the social relations at the workplace. So just to summarize these main points here, there's a lot of good things and about remote work and the changes brought about by new information and communication technology. It will be possible to have more flexibility, and decide when to work and how to work and where to do it and at what time. So this flexibility is definitely a very positive things that was quite clear from the results in this report. But also, when we talk about remote work, there's this challenge of leadership. How can you provide supervision as a manager, provide the adequate feedback, and engage in communication with the workers? And that is very important because you have to know what is going on. Are the workers stuck in some process, or what is how is it going with the work task? So supervision and leadership can be challenged by this remote work. And there's also this issue: who's responsible for the work environment when you're working at home? Formally, at least in the Nordic countries and in Denmark, at least, it's the employer who's responsible for the work environment. But it's not so clear when part of the work is going on at home. So there's a need for clarification on this topic, and we don't know that quite clearly yet. And then there's this problem of social relations and connections that can be lost, and it can be impede collaboration and collegial support, which could be very important in order to carry out work. And also it could it could have a negative influence on commitment and engagement of workers. And we know that all these things are very important for employees in order to be satisfied with their job and to feel that their work is meaningful, and also for them being productive. So the loss of these social relations and connections is really a challenge that should be addressed if you want to, as a company, to push forward with this more remote work, because there's some advantages associated with it. You should also think of these negative consequences. So that was my summary of the results on this remote work. I just want to briefly end here with an overview of the conclusions from the reports in general of what we found, because there were a lot of other issues, as I said, than just remote work. We addressed a lot of risk factors that will appear in the future in the work environment, but you could say it was all traditional risk factors and also protective factors. For example, job demands, autonomy, support, and things like that. That is in a psychosocial work environment very well-known issues, but they are coming in new disguises in the future. For example, with this remote work, communication platforms, social media and things like that, robot technology, where we have to interact via robotic interfaces and with robots. So even though the psychosocial risk factors will be the same, they will have some new origins. There will be, so to speak, new demands, as I mentioned, techno-stress, tele-pressure, requirements to new competences, that you have to learn new skills, complex skills in order to navigate in this new complex work environment. You have to interact with new colleagues across borders in different time zones, etc., etc. So there are these challenges that we have, that companies have to address in the future.
Thank you very much. Jesper, just because of the pressure of time, I think that, you know, the study is very interesting.
That will be my last slide, so thank you very much for the attention.
This is what I felt. I think that, you know, to end maybe on the practicalities there, not sure whether you went that dive with a deep with a Delphi study, right? But there are so many discussions about, so what is the right balance? 1 remote day per work, 5 days remote per work. So what even if the study does not, you know, answer that, if it does, it's perfect. But what would your, you know, feeling be based on the study itself?
Well, my feeling is that it depends on the employees. I think we have different, as an employees, we have different requirements and desires and conditions. For example, for me, it's easy to work home because I have the physical locations to do it. I don't have kids at home anymore that can disturb me, but other of my colleagues have different challenges. Maybe they are in a small apartment, there's no room for that. So you have to think these physical conditions of the employees, is that at all possible for them? So you have to take into individual considerations in planning and launching more remote work, for example. I think that would be a good starting point.
All right. I think that Berta, who we cannot see, unfortunately, would be jumping there on her desk and would say that Go with the questions. Go with the questions and talk to people, and you will get the answer there. So Jesper, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation there, and hope to see you in the summary discussion. Sure. Now we are jumping to something very, very practical, experiences, right? And I'm very happy and proud to present Ms. Vaida Kaikarienė, the country HR manager for Nordic-Baltic Group. And she will share with us the successful examples of how the sustainability and talent management activities together can create synergies. So Vaida, very happy to have you here. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so hello everyone, and today I will share very practical examples and some thoughts with you all. And it was good to hear Berta's example more about the questions and how to engage the talents and how to engage all the employees we will have and all the science-based. And I will show very practical things, how we are in Nordic-Baltic group, we try to do that and try to achieve that. So here, talking about the CR and sustainable activities, we have the cornerstones. And we also focusing not only how to create the growth, but also how to enable the growth. And what is more important, that all these things we need to align and to see how we could link together with different activities in the organization that would be more alive and we could achieve the best results. And how we want to make every day a little easier. So to have clear long-term strategic objectives, which you saw on the previous slide. Then we have shared ambition and long-term ambition, for 2025. And here we are having links. So how we could link between the long-term objectives and then ambition things, what we want to achieve. And then how to prioritize and how to write down and set up the change areas in each of the year that we could achieve. And here you could see the RIMI health strategy. And the strategy is not only RIMI, because we're working in all of the group, in the Scandinavian, in ICA group. And the ambition, we have the same. And we are setting the focus areas. We are thinking how we could engage our employees, our stakeholders, our society, and our customers to make it happen. And then you are thinking through health eating, what we want to focus on, physical activity, and mental well-being. And then talking about the priority groups. So which selected groups we are focused on and what we want to achieve. And then these targets you need to set not only because you are thinking so, not because it is nice to have, or it is very popular and fashion words in the society. You need to science-based targets. You need to see what science are doing, where we are moving, and what they are providing summaries of the studies, of the case studies. Then also how we could engage and how we could engage the communities where we are working and how we could engage our employees, because we have more than 12,000 employees working in the organization, and we together could make impact on these areas. And it is not only CR team activities. We need to work together. We need to work closely with raising the questions, with answering the questions, even the trying to find the answers to the questions, and then to make the priorities and the list of the activities, what we want to achieve. And here you could see an example. If we are talking about healthy eating, how we could work closely with the commercial department. If you're talking about physical activity, how we empower and also work closely with marketing department and of the rest of the organization. Mental well-being, also how together in the organization and supporting with HR activities, we could make an impact. So we understand that in all possible areas, you cannot achieve and reach the best and greatest results. So you need to focus on. You need to have the focus areas where you want to make the major impact. And we are saying that we want to create things for a good tomorrow. And we focus on these 5 sustainable areas: about locality, about environment, about the health, about the diversity, and the quality. And without people, we are nobody. It is just written areas. It is just written cornerstones. And we as an organization, we are empowering our employees to make a decision. We are giving them mandate to decide what we want to achieve, what we want to do. We try to listen, not only to talk and to share, but listen, because we have this power of huge society. And then incorporate them and work together on CR activities. In each of the store, we have an ambassadors who are working on these 5 different CR areas. And they could make impact working closer with their customers, with their communities, even with their teams. So why we are doing this? We are doing this because in the RIMI, we are saying that everyone is a talent. And we have more than 12,000 talents in the organization. So we need to listen to their ideas. We need to make it happen, these ideas. And then when you are focusing even on the diversity part, for example, it is more wider perspective to make things happen. We are saying that it does not matter what age you are. Join RIMI, and we could make things together. It doesn't matter what kind of abilities you have, disabilities you have. We really want to find your talent area and then empower together into the organization and to make things together. Foreigners, all and majority of the organization are trying to have the same kind of employees, the same approach or the same competences or the same gender things. Be more wider, have diverse teams, because in these diverse teams, you could have different approaches and different view to the same problem, to the same thing, and to the same focus area. So how together, all the CR activities and all the activities what you're doing in the organization, and together with the talents you have in the organization, how together we could make a synergy. So first of all, when you are creating this CR, for example, strategy, when you're thinking about the cornerstones, create it together, include science, include your customers, include your employees, stakeholders, to have a huge focus group to discuss so what we want to achieve, what ambition we could create, and could we create this ambition together? Communicate, to think about the communication, not communicate just in the organization. You need to think more wider in the organization, into the different levels of employees, for your customers, even to the partners, if you want to, that they will be also a part of your sustainability or CR strategy. Set KPIs. So KPIs is to set, you need to focus and try to find the best way, what we want to measure, what KPIs we want to have, and use the SMART methodology of setting the KPIs. And the same, you need to set KPIs together with your partners, business partners, your employees, your customers, your society, or your community with whom you're working. Then work together. You need to make an activities. You need to share the responsibilities, what we want to achieve, what priorities we will set, what kind of activities we even could split, or maybe we could have dual leadership on the same activities. Maybe some part will be your responsibility, some part will be me, but when I'm included into that part, I feel more engaged. I feel more responsible to do that and to make things happen. Not to forget to follow up. So track the progress, how we are doing, how we are following these KPIs. Do we have some struggles? Do we have some block things? What is blocking? maybe even the block things happening in the organization, or even between the departments, or even between the employees. We need to follow up, to have a retrospectives, and then to have a discussion here. And then also measure. So do we are on the right direction? Are we in the good way, how we are moving forward? Or we need to push, or we even need to stop because the environment change or the business priorities change. So how we could do, so not to forget to measure. And the last one, but not least one, and I think it is even the most important one, celebrate together. Not to forget even the small things, even the more small achievement things. If you have a well-being webinar, or you have one kind of session, or you have some activities in the organization, in that group, when you create together, you set it even the KPIs, as you measure, you follow up. Do not forget to celebrate things, because this is appreciation part also needed for everybody and for all employees and stakeholders. So what that synergy value brings for the business? If we empowered employees and engage employees in all of the activities, they feel a part, that they were a part of that area. We have higher employee engagement. We are measuring every year, and we are seeing how it is increased and increased. And we have high engagement of our employees. Also, in that teams where we saw that we have more diverse teams, and these ambassadors will make huger impact working closer with the customers, with the teams, with the community closer to the stores, we have lower turnover. And also we are measuring an NPS, so how employees recommend RIMI as a place to work, as an employer. And we are seeing that when we start and launch these ambassadors activities, to work in CR activities, it increased 10 times. So what I want to share, that everybody can do something, but together it adds up to something big. So we need to make things happen together with the team, with the partners, with the customers, and with the communities where we're operating. Thank you.
That, I'm in. You know,
Yay.
I really am very happy to see that the maturity of the discussions through those 8 years moved, you know, miles away, right? And I'm very happy to see that now, as an example of RIMI case, is that we do have a full integration of the business strategy and properly cascaded it down to really the KPIs, to the measurement. And this is what I think, you know, is amazing to see the journey that we as a country, as individual businesses have gone through. But again, Vaida, I would not leave you without the question. If you from the inside would have to single out one specific thing that drives and enables the sustainability agenda in RIMI, what would that be?
I would say dual or shared leadership, to be honest, because it is alive. It's not like written somewhere or put it into some, I don't know, presentation mode. It is very alive. And we have this dual leadership. What I want to mean, that it is not only one department responsibility. We split it and cascaded to the organization, for including all employees. And that makes, I think, the main power that we could enable and to have these achievements, what you, Liudas, mentioned.
Perfect. Vaida, thank you so much. Again, I hope to see you in a couple of minutes, a little bit more than, let us say, a couple of presentations. And without further ado, let us jump to Paulius Bulota. Paulius is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of PayCo Lithuania, PayCo Lietuva, and he will speak to us about, you know, how PayCo is finding new talents, right? So what is the sustainable approach to finding the talents? So Paulo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good day, everybody. I can see that we are a little bit behind the schedule, I guess, right? So I will try to be adaptive and flexible and make it a little bit shorter if possible.
Thank you very much.
And, yeah, thanks again for having us here. And we are representing the construction industry. And when we are talking about the sustainability, I think in many cases, even from the previous presentations, which were very interesting, we can see that sustainability can be understood in a different ways. Right, and I will try to show what sustainability means for us, for a global company in the construction industry, and how we are using the sustainable goals and sustainability measures to attract the new talents. And as it was mentioned in the first presentation, everything starts from the top, right? And the CEO of Peiko Group, which is headquartered in Finland, and our owner, he is also having this slogan. And this slogan for us, quickly I wanted to share it. And this is not only a slogan to put it on the wall and print it, but this is actually really the principle that we are following. And he is, how to say, walking the talk, right? And further on, if we look at our geographical presence in the world, it's even more complicated to speak regarding sustainability and sustainable goals, because in Europe, sustainability can be understood in one way, and we are, I think, very well advanced. And in the Middle East, in Asia, or in America, it has probably a little bit different meaning. What is sustainability? What is sustainable? What we should do to be more sustainable, right? And everybody has some kind of a point of view. In Peiko, when we are thinking about the talents, definitely the sustainable activities of the company are extremely important, especially now, especially for the young people. And young talents, new persons, we are calling forerunners, because we are positioning our company as a forerunner in the construction industry, in the building materials area. And being a forerunner, it's important for us as a company between our competitors. At the same time, we want to see our employees as a forerunners inside our organization and in general in the construction industry. So the talent should be problem-solving people with the complex thinking, ethical, with the collaborative, continuous improvement should be values that each forerunner is having. And when we look further regarding Peiko and forerunners, we are saying, what does that mean for us? And the first point, we put a rich heritage. But to be honest, a rich heritage is not really the highest priority. This is like a history, this is important, but most important are the points from the bottom of this list, where we talk about shaping the future, where we talk about inspiring others, where we talk about the innovations and independence. These are really the drivers that are attracting forerunners and that making them want to stay in the company. And now this is probably the most important slide, and I'm glad also that I have seen in the Rimi presentation the more or less the same theme, that there are United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and everybody can see that there are, I think, 17 of those goals in the United Nations website and reports, and we have selected 5 of them. And we are having targets for each 5 of those goals, and we are having KPIs for each 5 of those goals, and we are transparently showing to all the employees how we are performing, what we have reached every year, and what we want to reach next year regarding each of those goals. So I would like to go quickly about them, and let's say one is accelerate research development investments into sustainable building industry. This is related very well with the sustainable solutions and with the money that the company is investing in the research and development. And this is important to emphasize, that these investments are really not the ones which are bringing the best return on investments. So from the business point educational institutions, how to attract, how to empower more women to the engineering activities, because at the moment really we have a situation that engineering, manufacturing, construction is really dominated by men, and by our efforts we are believing that we are doing the impact, and we are reaching for a change. The climate action, we are having a fantastic products which are having less CO2 footprint, and we have a clear target to invest a lot on marketing. Again, not always the payback is the best from the business point of view, but we have a clear goal to have at least 100 projects with the environmentally friendly products, which also shows to our people inside the company that we care. And now you can see the one small logo. We are having said that because foreigners care, and this logo is also following us all over our activities inside the company. We want to really show by our actions and by exact cases that we care about the environment, that we care about the people. One more goal, which is to improve lost time injury frequency rate. This is related a lot with the safe workplace at work. And this is not only when we are talking about the office and about the home office, etc., but also we have to look at the workplaces in the factories. And the focus of the companies, either it's in manufacturing or in the construction industry, could be much more orientated towards the safe working environment, and safe working environment is directly related with the reducing of the accidents rate. So this is our target as well. The last goal from these sustainable development goals is the green energy, and solvent-based coatings change to the solvent-free coatings. This is again the target, which is having a lot of psychological impact for the employees who are working in the company, because young people, young talents, young foreigners, they really want to see that company cares about the environment, that company is not using let's say this non-renewable energy. They want to see company which is modern, and they want to see company which is, if possible, let's say, avoiding the solvents which are harmful for the environment. And we are investing in the solvent-free painting, which again, from the business point of view, this is not only about the profit, but this is much more about the society and about the environment. And all these actions are really important to everybody. And when we come to the exact solutions, also for you, I believe it would be interesting to know that in the top it is written in this slide that the building industry in general, it's very creating quite a lot of pollution worldwide. And totally 30% of the global amount of waste is generated in the building industry, and 40% of the energy is used. So any kind of action, any solution which helps to reduce is having a huge impact overall. We are having and we are investing in some products and solutions which are CO2 friendly, which are lightening the environmental footprint, etc. And these kind of projects where our people are able to be part of them, where they're working on the design, when they're working on the solutions for the clients, when they're producing the structures for these kind of products, we're always happy to share these cases with our employees. And for them, this is really, I would say, this makes them proud also to be part of something big and of something meaningful. And for you, if you are not really from the construction related business, let's say, these beautiful buildings, all of them, they are related in Lithuania, in Vilnius. And all of these buildings are really remarkable examples how energy effective and CO2 friendly construction can be done, even in Lithuania, even with our Lithuanian investors, Lithuanian construction companies, etc. So shortly, shortly more or less about it. I think I was able to save some time, and for us it's really important that we are caring for the planet, and this is really important for our people.
Perfect, Paulo. Thank you very much. I think that, you know, the one question which was, you know, always sticking in my head was about really, do you see that the forerunners not only care, but they actually contribute to the discussion, right? Do you measure, I don't know, through NPS, through the innovative solutions that they would contribute to? And do you have the answer to that the forerunners also contribute to the innovative solutions which would be more sustainable?
Definitely. This was what also I was showing, that this because forerunners care means forerunners are acting because they care, right? This is our message and our idea, that we are doing the exact actions and we are influencing the better future. Yeah.
Paulo, if I'm not mistaken, in the last slide, I've seen one of the buildings is actually the Danske Bank's building as well. Or exactly. Am I mistaken?
Exactly, it is.
Perfect. So I think that this serves as the perfect bridge to our last presentation. And I'm more than honored and happy to present Giedrius Zakunskas, the head of end user services in Danske Bank. And he will share with us his perspective about the sustainability as people strategy. So as we're short in time and we're packed in time, I will not torture you with any philosophical questions. Giedrius, the floor is yours, and passionate to listen for your presentation.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me well?
All is good.
Excellent. So do you see my slides?
Yes.
That's fantastic. Great. So thank you for perfect click, and thank you for helping us to be more sustainable. So I was thinking, you know, what to show, and generally I don't like too much of corporate slogans unless they're really backed up by the actions, and or they're living and breathing it. Otherwise, it's a words on the wall. So when I look into the Danske Bank in Lithuania, we have about 4,000 people. 4,000 employees in Vilnius. So we are literally moved out of the banking business in Lithuania, but we are still part of a big bank, helping bank to succeed and release the full potential for their clients. So the 4,000 people, we move from the banking business, I say for myself, we move into the people business. And for me, the people business, this is probably the places where I've been all my life. And when I talk about sustainability, the question is how we can make the sustainability programs really sustainable. It means, for me, that means you are ticking 3 boxes. That should be good for your people, that should be good for your business, and that should be good for your society. And if you are able to get this triple win and interlock those 3 boxes, then your sustainability program is true, this is honest, because you kind of reinforcing that not only by saying it, not because you just want to do that, not just because for the common good, but you deeply understand why it is important and you have the energy to continue forward. So for me, it's how to keep your heads in the cloud and then have feet on the ground and walk the talk. Sustainability probably for me resonates a lot with a stewardship. A stewardship for me means you leave the things better when you find them. If I look into the why we are doing it in the people business, I think we have to roll back a little bit, like for 100 years, the relationships between the employee and employer. If you look into that at the beginning, the employees has very little expectations, imagine 100 years ago, towards the employer and vice versa. So you come to work, you finish your job, you get paid, you leave. So this is basically the relationship has been happening, that at some point we move to the productivity question. Ford is a good example, how we can make it more efficient. So then we have looked into, okay, what the environments are, how we can improve the processes of employee optimization, make it more efficient, etc., standardize the stuff. So that already has impacted on the relationships between employees and expectations on the both ends from employer and employee. Society didn't kick it yet in that moment, I guess. Then we looked into where the most of the companies are. We start to care about people engagement. The dark side of the people engagement, at least for me, is when you look into the engagement surveys, and this is scientifically proven, and you address it with a certain actions in the yearly period that could move your engagement scores, like 3 to 10% max, and after some time it drops down again. So this is the studies I found in the Jacob Morgan book, and I said, oh, what's happening really? So, well, we have a company statement, we do all that stuff, we start focusing on the culture and annual surveys, right? But it doesn't really work well. And then when you look into what is really matters, and for me personally, happy employees are more productive employees, right? So of course, there's a lot of in it. But then if you look into culture, that's important. What we price, how we behave, what do we do? Then it's also important technology. What environments did you create also with technology and the space? Understanding the operational model. Can employees be productive? How can we adhere to the demands? Do we feel good in the work? Do we feel inspired? What the colors you have? We're investing a hell amount of money actually into the good offices, and thank you for the colleagues before, helping us to do that. If someone not been there, so give me a call via LinkedIn. I'll tell you all the entire philosophy behind it. Visit our place. But the most important is, as we move from only our basic needs, the more and more employees choose the companies because the company has a reason for being. It's much bigger reason than just produce the profit or just produce the goods. So if you look from that, and this slide I made it for myself actually, how could I explain to the employees why the sustainability is important and what is my practical approach toward this? So as being engineer, I put everything in the stacks, Maslow pyramids, all certain structures. So that helps me to operate. So if you look to the business perspective, we are the Danske Bank, we are the bank on the global scale. What is our strength? The biggest strength is actually power of finance. If you look from that, sustainable financing, this is the choices. How we can finance the good companies, the green bonds, how we help the companies to accelerate, which actually is better good for society. And we put the billions in it, we have a focus on it, and we help the companies to prosper. We have also helping the investors, by getting into this game. Ourselves, we are also investing a lot. We are the bank, so we are also the investor. So this same philosophy is transferred to that. On the governance side, we as a bank, we have a responsibility to protect our users from the financial crimes. It's about 3,000 employees out of 20,000 in Danske Bank are working only to looking into that, but all the transactions, all the payments, 40 million payments are screened on a monthly basis. Are we right? Is it someone getting cheated? Do we have some evasion of the money? Do we have some shady stuff? So we are like a big financial police office, actually, helping to be better for society, more responsible, don't allow the bad money to come in or come out. And this is the business of, this is a kind of big force behind it. And this is also good for the business and good for society. If I look to the people domain, this is my plain game field. We are in the people business. 4,000 employees. Imagine if their productivity or engagement drops by 5% or by 10%. We are running on the run rate about 200 million euros. So imagine what does that mean? So it's 20 million up or down. So it's really important to understand what drives the people, what drives their productivity, what drives their well-being. For me, and those people who has been working in the offshoring, nearshoring, and different type of setups, they would understand very clearly what I'm saying. Sustainable organization. There has been a good and not so good and perfect and bad practices running this business. It depends on how you provide and what kind of jobs you outsource, insource, and keep the people equipped with. So sustainable organizational design is, for me, when all the people in the company, regardless of their location, are the first-class citizens. We don't throw out the jobs to India or somewhere else just because people are cheaper there and they can do repeatable, meaningless jobs and very fragmented things. This is discouraging the people. This hurts productivity. This is not good practice. And firstly, it's not good practice for the business because you don't derive the best potential from the people you have and invest into human capital. If I look to the talent strategy, why we don't think so much, and we have to think so much about why we're having so much, I would call it waste in that process. All the companies has a high level of attrition, but imagine if you build up the company right, like this triangle, a lot of entry jobs, some jobs for career progression, and you put internal career paths. We are sourcing now about 30% of open roles from inside of organization. That would require work with university and feeding in. And imagine if you make it right, you are actually creating the closed improvement loops inside of a company. You are less and less actually have to be dependent on external environment. And this is a good for business. And this is also great for the people because we know the good people with a right attitude, with a good skills, who are progressing and investing into their learning, they will going up, they will get more responsibilities, they will feel great in the company and they'll be rewarded by this. So we are kind of looking into that. 30% of all openings, it's done from internal candidates. In order to do that, of course, you have to have a referral programs. Why you need to pay for the third parties to hire your people? It's about 2 to 3 months salary. So imagine if you operate on the attrition rates between 15 and 20% our market operates, multiplied for the 1,000 people and then by 4. So you will quickly get into a calculation how much of the money we spend for the third parties. Why not to give those money to your people? They are the best actually to attract and to know who are the best guys in the market. We pay them if they, and this is like I'm getting closing loop. So why we don't make this process more sustainable for ourselves and better for our employees? If I move to the society, let's take one spectrum, D&I, diversity and inclusion. And for me is so important because it's so close to my heart. We have to have a courage, especially big companies, international companies. It depends on, of course, environment you operate. But in Lithuania, to my opinion, we are kind of behind a little bit. And that takes a courage and the bravery to be a step ahead than the rest of society, to help society to progress faster. Our laws, they don't have anything said about if two same-sex parents, we have the kid, they can't really get even the paternity leave, paid paternity leave. Same-sex parents can't. We don't have a law for that. Even if you want, there's a lot of hard things for the people. Therefore, we are supporting the motion towards to the same rights for all the people, but also we do very practical steps. With our HR department, if the same-sex couple has a child, we are paying them from our own funds the paid parental leave. And this is happening as we speak now. So I think it takes a courage to help society to develop to the better one, although society is very much divided in Lithuania regarding D&I. I'm not talking about only sex, age, is disabilities. This is much wider spectrum. So in order to be successful in the people business, of course, university, it's not about only helping universities to teach what is necessary to get the skills in the market, but it's also understand what is sustainable. All the people in university, especially in IT, from the second year of graduation in the university, they all already have jobs. And this is the fact. The dark side of that, they compromise the quality of the skills they're getting in university. They're simply spending 8 hours a day because the money they need is now, instead of going to the lessons in university. So this is, or they stretch themselves. They work like 14 hours then, because 8 hours at the job, the rest with the studies. And this is not that nice. So instead of just looking simply, okay, let's employ more students, you have to be really careful. What do you really impose on them? The quality of education suffers from that. So we said, okay, fine. So let's establish the university program where we pay reasonable amount of money for the students to live their lives, but we cap actually that we even cap their hours. They should be able to spend about 30 hours, for instance, a week, and we provide them flexible schedule to come to work so they can combine their studies and work for them in a sustainable manner. For us, it's a massive benefits because the university's students, which are talented, most of them actually, they stay in the company. They feed the chain of talents, and this is what makes win-win-win for everybody, I guess. We touched before on the work-home balance in our discussion. Of course, pandemic changed the stuff. You know, we've been talking about work or not from home before pandemic for the years, and then it just happened in a day. So literally, like in 2 weeks, we moved 99% of the people in Danske Bank in Lithuania to home. So, but then we look into that. Oh, hey, you know, like this is actually cool. So, you know, how we can help the people, how we can subsidize the equipment they can buy at home and arrange an office. This is some tangible things. We can make them their lives much easier, much better. It's also good for productivity. So, you know, we dedicate amount of money to buy the monitors, to equip chairs, etc., whatever you want or need to make your life much easier and better. And then flex commute, you know, flexible schedules. Why don't you need to stuck in the traffic jams in the mornings? You know, let's remember yesterday what has happened. It took me 1 hour to bring my daughter to the school. Oh my God. So, you know, if not a daughter, I would go to commute to my work actually at 10 o'clock because I can do my mails in the morning. I can jump into this. And this is already corporate culture. This is absolutely fine. We trust our people. They do the job and they can choose a flexibility. And that should be backed up from, you know, something which is very fundamental, our investment into our environments. I think we touch upon the offices. Yes, I think we have a fantastic office in Vilnius. I think, you know, it's all beam, solar blinds. It uses the rainwater. It's very power efficient. It's activity based. So basically, you know, people don't, they choose the way we want to work. It's absolutely flex seating. It has a canteens, it has a sport gym, so people don't need to waste the energy to find something else to come. We spoke with a Meyer, unfortunately it didn't happen, but I said, okay, look, what we need to be more sustainable, less travel. So why don't you open like a kindergarten for 1,000 great kids close to us? So, you know, less traffic jams to arrive to the same location, you give your kid to the kindergarten, take it from kindergarten, no commuting inside of the city just because of that. So, you know, we didn't agree with Šimašius on that. Whatever. So, but this is the aspiration. If you look into the services, what is sustainable? Like canteens, simple things, but this is important. People can spend less time going for lunch and waiting for the waiters instead of they can come and pick up the stuff we really want to eat. It's a kind of flat fee, very seamless. Book, you pay, you go. And then it's not only save the money, they can, you know, like 1 hour for developer is 50 euros, right? So, you know, if you spend 1 hour elsewhere, you know, the businessman would feel, okay, that means I lost like 50 euros. If he spends 15 minutes for the lunch, then probably, you know, he will code more, right? So he'll create a value of 45 euros or so, or 30 euros. That's kind of business logic. But for me, it's also employees' happiness. Look, they can spend that 45 minutes on something else than the job. We can chat with a friends, we can go to play the golf on the simulator or do something which, you know, go to a mindfulness lesson, go to the gym, you know, make it much more better for him. And
Giedriau,
yeah,
as we, you know, I see the passion, I see the excitement of yours, right? But I also see the clock ticking there, and I don't want to hold my audience for too long. So if you would go to the conclusions, right? So what are the key aspects that you would like to bring to our audience to say, so what is the core of the strategy?
So I guess, first of all, get it structured and get the storyline for yourself. Do you really believe it? Try to get win-win-win. You know, then it will be really sustainable, because if that helps your business, if that helps your people, if that helps your society, this is basically the reinforcing elements which would make your investment into that and effort into that continuous and very impactful. You know, if you have a traffic problem, why not? You create the car spots for the people who bring their another colleagues into office. and these are marked, and you cannot park, anyone else can park there except those who comes in couples or more employees. This is benefit. You know, if you have less cars in the parking, if you have less commute time, and employees can enjoy each other actually on the way to work. You know, those practical things. You have to live the dream. You have to make it real. You have to make it happen. You know, donate furnitures, bikes to work, fantastic. Put the showers. Not only that, if you want the people come to bike to work, incentivize it. Make a like 2 times a year bike repair shop for free. You know, you'll see hundreds of bicycles appearing on that day. And for some people, that would become a habit. So what I'm trying to say, you know, keep it conceptual, keep it real, walk the talk, but always see the bigger picture. So Liudas, thank you, back to you.
Giedriau, I love the passion. I love the atmosphere there. And on this high note, I think that it's just about time to gather all the speakers together there for the conclusive remarks, right? And again, being cautious of time and then really respecting the audience, I would leave our summary discussion to the highlight points, right? So if I would give a question, Diaz, right? So what are the key and I will limit it to 2 questions, right? The first one is, what are the key takeaways from all of the participants that we heard today, right? And Berta, apologies, but I will start with you, right? So what are the key takeaways for you?
Well, I was happy to hear that everyone really talked about how the people that are going to deliver the results, the strategy, whatever, to actually the people who are the company are important to invest in, to include, to engage. And I thought everyone talked about that in different ways. So for me, who is passionate about the conversations and about connections between people, and really believe that that is bottom line for us to thrive and be happy, but also to perform and collaborate and achieve together. I was really happy to hear that. And I love that many of you guys had other concrete activities as examples of how we can do that. So yep. That's one key takeaway for me. And you know, you listen for what you really want, right? So to confirm what you believe.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jesper.
Yeah, I will not take so much time this time, because I completely agree with Berta. I think it was very positive experience for me to hear these very different focuses on the people, and that suits very well and very much in line with my own viewpoint on the importance of the work environment, because that also encompasses people perspective. So I was very encouraged by all these presentations. So thank you very much to all of you.
Vaida?
Thank you everyone for sharing your presentations. And my also main takeaway is from maybe Berta's side about raising the questions and use these 3 words, tell me more, and ask these three words and for our employees. And great example which Giedriau shared, from stakeholders, from the vision, how to make it happen with all the employees together, and make some tips and tricks with the cars, with the bicycles, and some key things that everybody want to be engaged to achieve things together.
Thank you, Vaida. Paulo.
Yeah, so also thanks to everybody for the interesting presentations, and I will take the thing from Berta's presentation about the importance of the bonding of the teams, of the this social collaboration between the team members, that it's even more important than the individual abilities of the team members. And on the other hand, it's really nice to see that the companies are thinking about the sustainability. Sustainability means even different things to different companies, but it's important to set the goals. And Giedrius was mentioning also a couple of times in his presentation, walk the talk is really important. It's not only posters on the walls, but the actions and practical actions.
Perfect. Giedriau, you were mentioned, for quite some time. What is the key takeaway for you?
Yeah. So, Ali G in the house, if you've seen that movie, he will say keep it real, right? But in reality, I think, for me, when I listen to all the people, like, you need to understand your business, how business can flourish because of that, right? You need to love your people, understand the importance of their satisfaction and well-being, right? And then probably you need to help societies to become better, because business brings also a massive energy for the people, and especially for the new generation which are coming now to a labor market. They look for the reason why the companies exist beyond the core business.
Thank you. Now, the second question is a little bit more tricky. I looked through the participants list of today's conference, right? I've seen mayors, I've seen the ministers of the Republic of Lithuania, I've seen the researchers, academics, NGOs, right? So if you would pick one stakeholder and would say that, guys, whether this is an incentive, whether this is another idea, what would be the recommendation to them, to the selected stakeholder, that would help us be better, move faster, and really be more sustainable? I don't want to, put it on Berta's shoulder here again. So anyone, any ideas? I will not pinpoint you guys there. So if you have an idea, just shoot it out.
So if I understand, I can't keep silence. So I'm not good with silence. But if I understand your question, are you asking us one good advice to start with first? Is that what?
Yeah, so I think that this is fine, right? I think that, what I hear and what I see is a lot of individual examples of how businesses take and do something, right? So can we bring businesses together? Can we involve somehow the NGOs into this more sustainability aspect? Is there something that the government could do more to help business, to help the society to go faster with the sustainability topic?
So maybe I can comment quickly. I think the government in general, they're doing some regulation activities regarding the norms and guidelines, etc. But to be practical, as Rimi was showing, as Danske was showing, I would suggest for the government and their organizations also to set their own goals of sustainability, especially towards the people who are working for the government, and walk the talk, do the actions.
Cool.
I would also want to add to the Paulo thought. I'm also thinking not only set the KPIs and not only set the targets, but maybe start from the beginning, include business more, and set these targets and KPIs together, and then to think it is relevant for us and we could achieve this or not. And then also not to forget to be the role model for the all institutions. So how to be a good example for the business that could also track and follow them, and then, celebrate together the success.
Perfect. Giedriau.
I would say to politicians, keep in mind the new electorate is coming. If you want to still stay in the business you want to stay, keep in mind this is really important. And look into this and walk the talk and keep it real. Especially politicians, we should be judged not what we are talking, but what we are doing. And if I'm looking into that, electorate becomes smarter and smarter. So if we talk about the partnership agreement, which is the first small step to make employees' life easier and to allow the people to be who they are, why don't you think about that? Why are you stopping it in the parliament? If you talk about we help the businesses to flourish in our city, so we are paying like hell amount of the taxes. One employee in the centers like ours is paying 6 times more than average citizen in Vilnius. This is my calculations as a contribution to the city budget. So don't, walk the talk. Help they make their lives easier. Give them a little bit back, and we don't ask much.
Yeah, perfect. Berta, Jesper, any ideas from your side?
I think it's difficult for me to come with good advices to other than if there are any research colleagues listening, then I think they can agree with me that I think more knowledge are needed also about sustainability in the businesses. So, yeah.
Yes, but this is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
If you would decide to include businesses in your surveys, I think that you have a wonderful platform to start with, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Berta.
I think if I should add something to what the others have said, I think is we need also to include the schools and the kids in schools and start this very early and teach our children the skills that are important to create this future together and to create a sustainable future. So we need to let our kids not only know about this, but practice the skills needed to do the work when they come into our companies, and they are going to change it. So that's my addition to this discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, dear participants of this summit, I'm looking at the watch. This is 1200 there specifically, right? So I think that, you know, I will really, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the organizers, the Nordic embassies, which I think are the true ambassadors, not only of their countries, but of the sustainability topics for years, to the Nordic chambers, to the Sustainable Business Association of the Lithuania, to the Nordic Council of Ministers, and to all who contributed to this happening for the 8th year in a row. I thank you all for being here and sharing your great ideas. And I hope to see you live for the 9th summit next year in Vilnius. So thank you very much and see you next year.
Well done, Liudas.